My name is Jay Vroom. I'm president of CropLife America, and it's my pleasure to open this event, our fourth successive national policy conference organized by CropLife America, and to say welcome and thank you for making time to join us here for this fourth annual event. We have enjoyed great success the previous 3 years with many of you in attendance, and thank those of you who are first-time attendees for joining us here today. Each successive year, we have found a greater positive outcome from inviting a very diverse set of stakeholders to join us, organizing an equally diverse array of panelists, and all of which being led by a very fine moderator, Mark Gunther of Fortune magazine. Mark, welcome and good morning. Good to have you back with us. In the past years, we have talked about the global food need in the kind of largest context, but been a bit more centric around U.S. policy issues. This year, certainly, we will address U.S. policy issues, but in a much greater global context. And I think you'll find, as you listen to the speakers and review their biographies in our printed program, you'll see that we've made a concerted effort at bringing more global experts onto the platform today. So undoubtedly, we'll consistently and regularly refer to the U.S. Farm Bill debate, with the Farm Bill having been marked up in both the House and Senate Agriculture Committees just last week, and the Senate having started floor consideration this week, with the House committed to having floor action in June on the Farm Bill. That's a very critical moment. As you'll recall, a year ago, we thought that we were in the sweet spot of the Farm Bill going to the home stretch. That home stretch piece didn't happen. But of course, the context of the U.S. Farm Bill is a global dialogue. Beyond the traditional focus on commodity programs, supports for individual commodity values and planting systems, there's so much more in our U.S. Farm Bill that have global implications, not the least of which has to do with the impact and the incentives for the use of technology and the development of innovation that American farmers lead the world with in terms of adoption and careful implementation. In fact, just a week ago, I was in Europe and spent some time on some very large and very productive farms. In talking with farmers in Europe last week, as I have many times over the years, I'm always struck by the similarities of their commitment to being efficient and productive, being mindful of the stewardship responsibilities that they own, just like U.S. farmers, Brazilian farmers, Argentinian farmers, Australian farmers, and how committed all of those farmers are to feeding a troubled and hungry world. But I'm also struck by the differences, and really the differences are the EU versus most of the rest of the world. And when you really boil it down, as I experienced again last week, you see practices like what I would call bare earth farming, spring-seeded crops going into highly tilled fields with no crop residue on the surface. One of the reasons that they have a difficulty in adopting as much conservation tillage in the European Union as we do here in the United States or Argentine or Australian farmers do is the absence of the access to biotechnology and the ability to combine modern chemistries and biotechnology to afford progress around conservation tillage that is second to none everywhere else in the world except for Europe. And when you take it to the consumer and you think about the fact that we Americans are about 330 million, and yet our net agricultural exports are in the range of $100 billion, flip that to the European Union consumer experience, about 440 million of those individuals, and they're in a net deficit 100 billion food import condition. So a $200 billion swing, if you will, deficit. A lot of that is attributed directly to the policies that limit access to technology, in my view, between the European Union and much of the rest of the productive agricultural world. So those are just some thoughts among many that will be expressed here today as we have an open and honest and transparent conversation about the issues that relate to technology, but really ripple out into tidal wave proportions for food consumers and impact on the environment literally around the world. So we're really lucky to have a great array of, I counted last night, 17 different panelist presenters that will come before you here today. Our first keynote presenters in the panel that Mark will take over here in a few minutes will feature authors Frederick Kaufman and Paul Roberts, and they will challenge us to think about the evolution of the global food system and whether or not we are headed toward the end of food. Some additional questions that we surely will address today include, is it possible to strike a balance between the challenges of global food insecurity on one hand and obesity, which is real, on the other hand? And can that balance be achieved through policy as well as dialogue? What are some of the real-world implications for agricultural expansion for the private sector? Can the various regulatory policies around the world better align to support our globalized food economy? Well, I'm pleased to take a little bit of an aberration from your printed program, which says that opening remarks would be delivered to you by the chairman of the board of directors, John Krosniak of DuPont Crop Protection. Unfortunately, John has had both a job change and a schedule change and couldn't be with us here today. But I'm pleased to invite two members of the CropLife board of directors, John Casper, the commercial North American director for FMC Corporation's ag business, and Mike Vanderlot, the executive vice president and COO of Winfield Solutions, the agronomy company of the Land O'Lakes Cooperative Farm Organization, to join me on the stage to deliver the John Krosniak equivalent welcome. So John and Mike, could you step up here, please? And ladies and gentlemen, join me in giving these two gentlemen a warm welcome of applause. So guys, why is CropLife here? Both of you lead significant member companies. Mike, one of the major distributor organizations in the United States of crop protection, fertilizers and seeds to farmers. John, leading innovator in crop protection chemistry. What do you see in terms of the opportunity to speak to such a diverse audience, to bring folks together, and what are our goals?
Well, I think it's about providing an open forum to share ideas. Like Stephen Covey said, seek to understand before seek to be understood, right? So obviously food, very, very sensitive issue. I started out in college as a history major, and I had a crusty old history professor that actually was in the CIA in World War II behind the German line. So obviously a perspective of fear that none of us would have. But on the last day of the history class, he made a message that said, basically the history of mankind comes to one thing: hungry people do desperate things, including killing their neighbors and being in Washington, D.C. The more appropriate one was including chopping the heads off of their leaders. So, given how sensitive food is, having that open dialogue, is really an important thing, and I think that's what this is all about.
Thanks. John?
And I think that the forum really gives us an opportunity to highlight differences of opinion. And, I had a chance to go to the dinner last night, and Paul's going to speak later about the end of food, and how in the book he talks about how the food system is broke and the challenges associated with modern agriculture. And I think about modern agriculture today. Many in the room may not be aware, but we were very close to having a major crisis in American agriculture, where we had extensive rains in the Midwest over the last couple of weeks. And the corn planting was at like a 25-year low. And there were some concerns as if the corn crop was going to be planted, because there's a realization that after May 15th, every day that you delay corn planting, it has real yield significances, and there's increased risk. So the USDA just came out with the results of what the corn planting looked like for the key states, and it went from 28% a week ago Friday to 71%. So basically 40% of the corn crop was planted within a week, which is pretty historic when you think about the significance of modern agriculture. And this isn't done by corporate farms, or, it's really fundamentally done by a very efficient farming system that more need as far as global demand for our products, for our agricultural products, and it's done by a very efficient way of developing and producing food. And we have to do that with sustainability practices and making sure that we are very respectful of the environment we're dealing with. But it's kind of like this divergence where we have some components saying that the system is broke, and then we have a system like last week where we show it's not broke, it's extremely efficient, and we can rise to the challenges that we're dealing with. So just kind of just an example of what some of the issues that we're facing are.
At the end of the day, you both made the point, though, that it is important for us to listen to people with differing views and to have an open dialogue. So I think our commitment here today as an association, as an industry, is to do more listening than talking.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of a conversation that I had recently with Senator Cole. And hi, Kathleen. I was in talking about biotechnology and our Roundup Ready alfalfa, and he goes, Mike, don't you understand that the majority of Americans don't like GMOs? And I said, yeah, we really haven't done a very good job of telling the story of biotechnology, but as you pointed out, what has happened Roundup Ready and what that's meant for soil conservation and prevention of soil erosion. Senator Cole, Western Wisconsin, highly erodible soils, big deal, And he said, yeah, but Roundup Ready, all the super weeds have come, the resistance, and it's like, yeah, really, if we had to go back and do it over again, we would have did it differently in terms of the stewardship. But I said, we take antibiotics and we get resistance to antibiotics, and we come up with new processes to go forward. So we have 2,4-D tolerance and dicamba tolerance coming, and immediately, just like that, he says, well, but wasn't 2,4-D part of Agent Orange? And it was like, yeah, but it was dioxin, the byproduct of 2,4,5-T. It really didn't have anything to do with 2,4-D, and I think they used water in Agent Orange, and we haven't banned water. And he said, well, I appreciate your comments. You probably haven't changed my mind about biotechnology. He says, but I will be a lot more open to listening to the other side of the story. And I think that's the thing that we really have to make sure that we do here is clearly listen to both sides and seek to understand.
Absolutely. John, you mentioned the term modern agriculture, and I think it's important for us to really make it clear that from a CropLife America and member companies standpoint, we think of modern agriculture as being inclusive of all systems of farming. And frankly, there's been incredible innovation in organic farming here in the United States and in many places around the world, where there's lots of innovation that is being filled and pursued and implemented by farmers using some very sophisticated technology, including things that both of your companies are selling to organic farmers today. And sometimes that technology is also benefiting conventional non-organic farmers as well. So that's another space where the dialogue needs to continue and to expand.
I would say that where there's an opportunity, the whole sustainability, biorational, organic market is an emerging market. And both of our companies are monitoring and developing products. We have some very exciting, innovative products that will be organic in the organic segment. And I think as technology continues to develop and evolve, these will be incorporated into modern production agricultural systems. So I think that there is a balance. And the marketplace will dictate what percentage of those acres will be organic or what percentage of those products will be organic products. But at the end of the day, we still have to produce food for an ever-demanding world. And how do we address hunger and some of the fundamental issues incorporating sustainability in some of the biorational products?
Excellent. So we've said that this is a transparent dialogue day. So any of you have any questions for us as we get started? Mark Gunther was going to be pressing you all day to ask questions, to engage, to step up, give us a Twitter question, 140 characters, state your name, be quick. Anyone? Paul or Frederick, would you like to ask us any questions? Okay, well, Mark, maybe you'll do a better job of eliciting questions than I am right now. But John and Mike, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your opening remarks, and thanks for being here today.